They said he came for falcons and deer, but I saw the sorrow in his eyes long before he touched a rifle. Was 20 and working the front desk at a ranch-style lodge in Idaho when he arrived. Alone, draped in tailored khaki in the quiet air of someone used to silence. His beard was white as bone and trimmed like the edge of a scimitar. His eyes, tired, searching, lingered too long when I asked him how many nights he'd stay, until I stopped dreaming of deserts, he said, and just like that, the hunt began. He was Sheikh Karim Al Nahyan of Riyadh, wealthy beyond reason, yet more interested in the way pine needles fell than the latest stock exchange. I brought him mint tea each morning, just to see if he'd ask my name. He never did. Not once, not until the day I wore my grandmother's silver bracelet. Then he looked up, truly looked, and asked, was she kind? That was how it started. Not with a flirtation, but with a question that weighed more than it should have. He was 40 years older than me. I knew that. So did everyone at the lodge. They whispered. Some laughed. But he listened. When I spoke, he paused like my words mattered. And when I asked about his homeland, he didn't tell me about money or palaces. He told me about the stars and the sound of hooves at dawn and the loneliness of a man who'd outlived too many wives, too many sons. On the third day, he invited me to ride with him. I said yes. I don't remember my voice trembling, but my hands did. He watched, never touching, just noticing. On the 7th day, he proposed. I will not live long, he said, but I want to remember what softness feels like before I go. I married him by the riverbank behind the lodge in borrowed white linen and trembling hands. It was quiet, simple, no rings, just a silver chain he fastened around my wrist, saying, "You're free to leave when you wish." But then came the morning after the final hunt dot. We had ridden out early. He'd caught nothing. The land didn't give him what he came for. He stared at the bloodless trail ahead, eyes hollow, and when we returned to the lodge, he said, "I will leave tonight." I've arranged everything. Leave? I asked, the coffee cup in my hand turning cold. He nodded. I will send what you need, money, comfort. You need not come. I stood very still. The only sound was the door between us, slowly beginning to close, but I didn't move. He did, and I said nothing, but I wasn't staying behind, not without him. He didn't leave that night, not because I begged. I didn't. I simply stayed outside his door, sitting barefoot in the hall with my knees to my chest and my grandmother, silver bracelet catching the light. He opened the door before dawn. Didn't speak, just stepped aside. From that morning on, our days became a rhythm only we understood. I still wore the lodge apron. He still wore linen-like armor, but something shifted. He stopped calling me daughter, a term he'd used once, to distance what he didn't know how to feel. Now, he asked about my hands, if the dish soap dried them out. He poured tea for me first. These weren't romantic gestures in the way people expect. No flowers, no declarations. But they held weight. We started eating dinner together. Not at restaurants, but in the small kitchenette behind the lodge's staff quarters. I'd make lentil stew. He taught me to crush cardamom with the flat of a blade. We spoke little, but never in silence. The quiet between us was always full, like a tent filled with desert wind. You couldn't see it, but it held everything upright. Sometimes, after the dishes, he'd bring out an old leather-bound book of poetry and translate verses for me. There is a line, he told me one night, fingers trailing the Arabic script. It says, "I feared her laughter more than any war because it made me want to live longer." I didn't laugh. I swallowed too hard for that. One evening, I found him outside, seated on a worn wooden bench near the corral, staring at the dying light. I buried my son in a place with no name, he said suddenly, not looking at me. He would have been your age. He died in a car crash I never saw coming. That was the only time I ever saw him cry. And even then, it was just one tear, but I felt it. Like it belonged to both of us. I reached out and touched his shoulder. Just. That. No words. His hand trembled beneath mine, but he didn't pull away. The air between us had changed. The storm came sudden. Idaho thunderstorms always do. 1 second dry lightning over the hills, the next, rain slashing sideways like something was trying to tear the sky in half. The power went out at the lodge. Gas scrambled. I found myself holding candles soaked to the skin when the back door creaked open and he stood there, Kareem, in nothing but a drenched tunic and bare feet, looking for me. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "You came back," I replied. His eyes softened. I never truly left. The storm trapped us in the old staff cabin that night. No one else came. Just the sound of wind, thunder, and the ache between us. He lit a lantern, made tea, sat across from me as I wrung water from my sleeves. "I was going to leave you," he said. I thought it would be kinder. I looked at him. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because I didn't want to be remembered for breaking you." "You didn't break me," I whispered. "You're the first thing that's made me feel real in a long time." He looked at me then, not as a man who married a girl for company, but as someone suddenly, terrifyingly alive. His hand reached across the table, just brushing mine. "You were a kindness I didn't ask for, and a risk I didn't know I could take." "I want to stay," I said. His fingers curled around mine. "Then stay. No kiss, not yet." Just the feeling of two lives tipping closer, the tension. Not yet undone, but acknowledged. Later, I stood at the small window. He came up behind me, silent. The storm had passed. Only light rain whispered against the glass. I turned. We didn't speak. Our foreheads touched. And then we kissed. Not like something claimed, but something recognized. His lips were warm and steady. Mine trembled. But it was soft, real, not a performance. Not an escape. After, we sat on the floor, backs against the bed, not touching anymore, just close. He said nothing, and I didn't need him to. Kareem stayed 3 more weeks. We made no plans. Didn't tell anyone. The lodge manager gave me side eyes and muttered comments, but I stopped caring. I woke up early, made eggs for 2, folded shirts that weren't mine. It wasn't about domesticity. It was about presence. Being allowed to care for someone who didn't expect it, but never took it for granted. He had scars on his back from a riding accident in Morocco. I traced them one night with my fingertips, not asking questions. He told me anyway. I was 25. I thought I was invincible. My father didn't cry when I fell, but he gave me his saddle afterward. That was how he said, "Live better." Kareem began to sketch. Simple things, hills, birds, my hand wrapped around a tea mug. I caught him drawing my face once. He didn't apologize. Then one morning, I found a key on the windowsill, old, brass, smooth with use. He handed me a small slip of paper for the cabin out back. "It's yours now." "Even if I'm not," I stared at him. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because you should never wait on someone else's word to feel you belong." I held the key like it weighed more than gold. And I realized he wasn't leaving. Not this time. We didn't say we were in love. It would have felt too fragile, too easy. But that night, he unpacked his last bag, folded his prayer rug, hung a single robe in my closet. A life doesn't start in a grand moment. Sometimes it starts when a man hangs up his coat beside yours. We sat together by the cabin porch, watching the light fade from the hills. I leaned against him. He whispered, "You didn't stay behind." And I said, "No, I stayed beside."